Um, okay, I'm still kind of trying to figure out the proper formality, how you start this thing. I'm not sure if I look at the camera. My setup is two cameras angles. First and foremost, thank you. We're going to kick this thing off with this little message here. Do not take life for granted. I mean, this is nothing to play with, folks. Don't you ever take life for granted. Those of us who have been through it and have come from it, believe me when I tell you that taking life for granted is probably among the top 10 things you could do. Taking life for granted is most definitely the most insane thing a person could do. I appreciate life. I try to celebrate it as much as I can. I do. I honestly find a reason to celebrate life as much as I can. Why? Because it is that important. You know you're taking life for granted when you start to act like an asshole. Don't be an asshole. I love my mother, my brothers, my family. I love them all. That's all I had to say about life itself, is that find reason to celebrate life. The only excuse to not celebrate life is to be dead or in jail. That is your only excuse. Anything outside of that, you are disqualified for not participating in the celebration of life. I said it. I disqualify you. Don't be an asshole. That's another disqualification. Do not be an asshole. I do my best, and I know it's hard to be nice to people all the time, knowing or unknowing total strangers. It's hard. People, in fact, take you for granted once you start to be nice to people. Oftentimes, they want to make you the victim of the situation. But that's just how it goes. And sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. I just had to check to see if my other light was on. And it is, so we're good to go. But don't you take life for granted. Life is a beautiful thing, man. So try to celebrate it as much as you can. Me and my family, we moved to this country where my mother, I had no saying in the matter. Mother moved to this country, beautiful country, Canada, back in 1997. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We didn't know the culture or nothing like that. One of the questions I've been asked, and at first I never understood it, is the question of where you're from. People ask me this question all the time. You know, it's different when you're from here and someone asks you where you're from. I mean, you grew up hearing that kind of question, so you don't think anything more of it. It's just another question. It's like saying, how are you? How are you doing? Or someone inviting you to a party. It's not a big deal, really. But when you come from where I come from, People ask you a lot of questions, and that ain't one of them. And so for years after we come here, people will ask us, where are you from? And I never understood that question. Eventually, I just told them whatever I wanted to tell them, because I realized that it didn't matter what I told them. People just wanted to know. They're just curious. They just want to know. It's the culture in North America. They want to know where you're from, and it's kind of how they start small talk. But the flip side of that is they put you in a box. They put you in a box with the rest of the coyotes. It's important to drink water, especially when you're sitting in a room talking to yourself, practically with 2 cameras around you and lights around you and a microphone. I mean, more microphone than you actually need around you. It is definitely important. There are a few times when a man needs water. One of them is when he's absolutely thirsty. And his second is when he knows he has to carry on this conversation for 45 minutes talking to himself in a dark room with 2 cameras and a bunch of microphone and 2 lights. Oh, he's going to need the water. Damn straight we're going to need the water. I digress. For those of you that don't know me, I'm born in Liberia. I was young. And those of you that are probably familiar with the history. So I will give you guys a vague historical background of what Liberia is and where it's located. So Liberia is located on the west coast of Africa. It's a tiny country. It's 2019, December 14th. We're shooting this podcast and getting it out of the way once and for all. In the 80s, Liberia was flourishing. You know, we were trading with the Chinese, trading with the world. We were trading with everybody. We had a president. I was a baby. Now, everything that I'm telling you are things that you can easily research yourself online. Just basic history. But we were good. We weren't struggling. In fact, Liberia was flourishing. And anyone you meet today that has ever gone to Liberia or lived in Africa long enough would tell you how flourishing this little tiny country was. Because everybody from all over the world used to go there. That was just the place to go. And Liberian had this mentality. It's like, I was born here, therefore I would die here. That was the mentality. (1989), the Liberian Civil War starts. I mean, very few Liberians at this point had traveled, like left the country, go to foreign land, like USA, maybe go to France, Belgium. Very few people at this point have traveled. And those who have traveled have been the privileged, people who come from money. Like, I know many of my older sisters and brothers, most of them had traveled too. Like, one of my sisters lived in America, you know, prior to the war. And my brother was staying in another country. He was in Sierra Leone, which is a neighboring country. Nevertheless, it just comes to highlight the standard in society that your family must have to be able to send your siblings elsewhere. So the war starts. By my house, there was close to it, there was a soccer field where, you know, there was often professional soccer game that took place there. And, you know, I'm not going to spend too much time on this story here because I don't think I have enough time in 45 minutes to tell you the story. So I will just cut through it as quickly as I can. I'm sitting on top of the hill, and I could hear like bullets whistling by me. But I didn't know they were bullet because, I was just young, I mean, I spent most of my time getting in trouble, playing with my friends, playing soccer primarily, football, I should call it from now on, football. I don't even know what soccer is, which is so confusing. When you look at someone and want to tell them you a sucker, I guess there's a difference. Anyway, so I'm walking back and there's like bullet whistling because I can just hear it go by my ears. And I have no idea what's going on. I get home. Less than 20, 30 minutes. All we heard was like bullet outside the house. I ran and hid under the bed. What else am I supposed to do? I'm a kid. I'm supposed to hide underneath the bed. I figure if I hide underneath the bed, my chances of survival become pretty high. All that's going to happen is they're just going to get everyone else and leave me the hell alone. And I'm going to crawl out from beneath the bed and go to safety. I don't know what's going on at this point. Anyway, soldiers march in the house. And they're everywhere at this point, ordering people around. I can hear loud voices. More shots being fired outside. Eventually, they take everybody out of the house. I'm still under the bed, man. I figure I got this. It's scary. I mean, I'm trying to put light to the situation because one of the things that I don't like to do is tell a very sad story, which is why it's taken me all these years to finally open up about this part of my life. This is something that I don't tell people. I don't open up because one of the things that happens is people start to put you in a box, or they start to say, feel sorry for you, for instance. Oh my goodness, and then now they tell your story to other people. It's like, oh, meet so and so. This is Rico. He's from Africa. He hid under the bed when the soldiers came to his house. That kind of a rhetoric. So I try not to tell people my story, but I'm opening up now. Since I've come to realize that with podcasts, you got to be honest with people. So they take everybody outside. Minutes go by, I'm still underneath the bed. And then suddenly I could hear boots now. But not as many. I think maybe just one. Coming towards the bed, and it starts to get louder and louder. And it stopped. It's kind of like the movie, right? Where the kid is underneath the bed and the villain comes in and he stands right there at the spot. And he's standing there for like a minute. I guess they must have searched the entire house by now. Just making sure because they figure people will be hidden under the bed. And then I saw the tip of his gun being lower and lower. I'm not sure what gun he was holding. Maybe a AK-47 or like a M16, something along those lines. Anyway, he sees me. He ordered me from underneath the bed. So I came out. I wasn't going to fight him. As we walk further on the street, that's when I start to see bodies. I'm going back to the theme of this podcast. Appreciate your life. Appreciate what you have now. You may not know what you have until it is either too late or it's absolutely gone. I don't care how old you are. You can be 150. Or you can be 4 or 6 or 10 or 20 or 40. Appreciate your life. The story I'm telling you, a lot of good people didn't survive it. And oftentimes, for the longest time, I would have these dreams. These nightmares that I will wake up from. Always the same sort of thing. I was being hit by a car in one dream. I had some people chasing me in another dream. Just one nightmare after another nightmare. So appreciate your life. You don't have two lives. You have but one life. Water is the most important commodity. I know. I digress. Appreciate your life. If you're young, enjoy being young. If you're an older, enjoy being older. Be respectful to others. Be courteous to others. And I know it's hard because we live in a world now where I don't know what the freak is going on. Everybody know too much. And you can't tell anyone anything. Back to the story. Now I start to see bodies. And I'm seeing a lot of it. Men, women, children. On top of that, I'm seeing young ones with guns. Guns bigger than them. Remember that 50 said one time in one of his lyrics, I got a gun the size of Little Bow Wow. Remember then? Okay, well, I mean for him, it's lyrics. But for this particular situation, it's happening. Kids probably younger than me can't even walk right with AK-47. I didn't watch some documentary. What I'm talking about here is not documentary based. I didn't read the newspapers. I didn't listen to the radio. I didn't get my info on the radio. I'm right there and then. And don't talk about the stench. It smells. And that stench of seeing bodies stays with you for a very long time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't go away. It doesn't matter how many times you showered, how many times you wash your clothes, get in and out of new clothes. It doesn't matter. And the image stays with you forever. And if that kind of experience doesn't keep you granted, then I don't know what else will. There is an image of a baby crashing beside her mother, but she's dead. And all she's doing is just wailing away. And nobody can help her. Because the line that we're told to follow or walked on, if you leave the line to help someone or talk to someone without being spoken to first, that's it. Your history. I'm going to skip this part and fast forward real quick to Ivory Coast. So Liberia is bordered by few countries. One of those countries is Ivory Coast. Now, for those of you who have no idea, because Ivory Coast go by two names, you can call it Cote d'Ivoire or you can call it Ivory Coast. But if you watch football and you're familiar with Didier Drogba, well, this is the land of Didier Drogba. Liberia borders Ivory Coast and also borders Sierra Leone and also border, I believe, Guinea. When we arrive in Ivory Coast, we're in Danane. And in Danane, there's a refugee camp. My mother hadn't liked the idea of a refugee camp, so she refused to go to the refugee camp. Appreciate what you have. When you wake up, like, you don't have to go to church to believe in God or believe that there's a higher being out there. Even if you don't, you need something to give you hope. Just be thankful. We're sharing a bedroom like 15 other people. The struggle, even if you don't, you need something to give you hope. Just be thankful. We're sharing a bedroom like 15 other people. The struggle, is real. But when you're in it, man, especially being so young and a kid, you don't, it's not really classified as, man, we're suffering, like, because everyone else around you, it's not like you see people driving around in Bentley or Mercedes Benz. It's a little different. And plus, by now, by the time the war starts in Liberia, to the point where we make it to, we make it out of Liberia to come to for refuge, to seek refuge in Ivory Coast. I mean, months have gone by, so you've seen way worse. This is like paradise compared to where you're coming from. But no matter what happened, you're not thinking about death, though. It's crazy being in such a dark place in those days. You're not thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to die or whatever. It's not here when something happened, you're like, man, I'm going to die. It's because you're familiar with death. It's on your TV, everywhere. No positivity. So the first thing you think of, man, I'm going to die. No, we didn't think that. We knew it was hard. It was tough. But we also knew that we had to do what we needed to do. And I don't want to paint too grim of a picture here, an image here, and turn people off. And so I would just give you guys a straight story today. This is the first podcast. Again, welcome to 18th Avenue with Rico Bottles podcast. Whether it's January or December, it doesn't matter. We don't have snow. We don't have any of those things to worry about. It's sunny all year round. We get rain. We're happy. We get more sun. We're happy. Everything is good. So we're not keeping calendar. We're not keeping date. We don't even have timer. People are wearing watches, but I couldn't even give you a date because it wasn't like that. We didn't focus. We had real life situation to deal with, and date was not a part of the curriculum here. Nope, we weren't playing that. That is not how it was going to go down. We had famine to worry about. We had salvations to worry about. We had real life struggle to worry about. We had to worry about where our next meal was coming from. One of the reasons I always appreciated rap music. I've always one of like the first music, well, probably the second music that I love, because my mom used to listen to a lot of folks music back home. That would be like the dance music and things like that. So yeah, that's my first love. But I always love rap music because the kind of thing that rap music was talking about, it made sense to me. It's like, what? I'm coming from there. These guys are coming from there also? Like, I'm not even sure. There's a rap lyrics that come in my head right now. Something about sleep, have cigarette for dinner, just for beginners. I think it was G Dep, but I forget the line, and I don't want to misquote too many things here. But rappers will talk about how they have nothing to eat. Like they have to pray, or drink like water, sugar water. And that was their dinner. We did a lot of that. So for me, rap music was always was so critical in my life. I was just like, man, this is dope. It's dope stuff. That somebody is writing my life story. It's crazy. It's wild. It's unbelievable. I'm intrigued. And I want more of it. Favorite music out there. On top of that is danceable. Great beats. None of that beating pans and crap together and trying to make something that is not. I digress. It's been a while. My French is crusty right now. It's not butter anymore. It's more like French without popcorn. You don't even get the pop, just the corn. That's my French right now. Let me talk about the street that this podcast is named after. Now, there's no avenue in the street. Avenue, I just thought that adding the word avenue to 18th would, it just sounds good, and it flows well. So, the street that my mother had her restaurant on, it was nicknamed. It was a Liberian community, and back home we nickname things based on the personality, based on how you act. We gave you a nickname if you're strange, whatever you do, we would nickname you that. So the street was nicknamed. I don't even know the actual name of the street, to be honest with you, but it was nicknamed the 18, because the 18 was where everybody went. It was the place you wanted to be. It was flourishing. Business was good. Everybody came there. But this was the 18, man. The 18 has so many characteristics and personalities. All kinds of different types of people were here. So one of the most famous thing that would happen all the time was, people like the big shots came to the 18. The politicians that have money came to the 18. The officers came to the 18. The cops, the undercover, whatever you were, you came to the 18, because that's where things were. That's where things were happening. That's where you were guaranteed at night to have a good time. So Maison Blanche, the restaurant, has a rooftop that primarily the residents would go. So a lot of the time, me and my friends, we didn't sleep. I mean, we got in trouble all day long. And at night, we would go on the rooftop, because we knew if we came down to mingle with the older people, they would just beat us up. So as a kid, you are not allowed to party with unless you were there for survival. But you don't come down where the older people are unless you were invited. Someone called you to go do, run an errand or something, and you were returning from that errand. Aside from that, you had to go where the kids were, and we would go on the roof. But from the roof, you could see everything that was going on. And that's the 18. We knew there was, we had big shot in the neighborhood. We knew we had politicians in the neighborhood. We knew we had hustlers in the neighborhood, or hardcore gamblers in the neighborhood, based on how many taxi would show up in the neighborhood. So sign number one, if someone had money, there was a big shot in town, you knew, because what they did was the charter taxi. It's not like here where a guy has money, whatever, you don't know. But over there, the guy who has it pays for everyone else. He charters taxis for random people he doesn't know. He charters taxi from here. Like Calgary has a very, very famous street. Now, I don't know if, I'm just going to pause it for a second. I don't know if I should be looking into the cameras. I have two of them, or just be telling the story. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me with that. Let me know if I should be looking in the camera or not. So Calgary has a very famous street known as Steve Ave. And Steve Ave, as far as you can stand, imagine this is the 18th. As far as you can stand and look either direction, it's all taxi, charter. Like, no one had personal vehicles. It's not like here people have personal vehicles. They'll drive to the bar, leave your park somewhere, and then go to the club. No one has personal vehicles over there. Everybody came to the club in a taxi. That's it. But it was the place, man. That was like our Taj Mahal. Like, it was the street. It was where everything happened. It was, if you had money, you were there. And everybody, we're in this community not long before they find out that A Liberian woman opened a restaurant and she makes the best food, and that's how the words got around, and everybody just went to her. Everybody knew her. They referred to her as, you guys seeing Big Mama House. So it's kind of like that Martin Lawrence thing, or it's like Big Mama House, where everybody would know who you are in the community. Very similar scenario. Very similar thing. So business was good. Business was good. There was one, like every community, every suburb, every country you go to, no matter where you're from, there's always, every city has its demon. Let me say that again. No matter where you come from, where you go, what city, what neighborhood, what country, every city has its demon. And for Treshville, the 18th, his demon was a thug by the name of John Pololo. Listen, keep that name in mind, all right? John Pololo was his name. What a break. Water is the most important commodity anyone can have. If you are without water, you're without life. Now, I don't know if you buy into it, but I surely do. If you don't have water, get yourself some water. So now John Pololo, you knew John Pololo. John Pololo would come in and terrorize the entire community. Like, he just fuck with Liberians. He, like, the worst way. He would just terrorize them. I'm not sure if he terrorized the community, but this man, he is the equivalent of like cops towards black people in North America. All into one. Like, he is the equivalent of cops toward black people in North America. This is what Pololo was to the Liberian community. The only thing he didn't do is that he didn't kill you. See, that's the difference, right? You know, where I'm from, unless things are like really bad, people just don't die like that. Like, I live in Treshville. Even though with all that gun violence and things like that going on, that was just between the criminals and the police. But John Pololo, I've never heard anyone died or anything like that. But the dude would terrorize. If you ever watched that movie, Friday, where Debo come in, Chris Tucker and Ice Cube tucking the chain, except imagine a convoy of Debo arriving on the 18th. Imagine that. That's like 4, 5, 6 vehicles coming in. A whole lot of guns. And these guys were not skinny. See, they didn't have gun. Nobody brought guns. No, there's no gunplay. Back home, things are like you either know how to fight or you don't. Like, there's no gunplay. These guys didn't have guns at all. The biggest weapons would probably be like a machete or something like that. But you didn't even see that. They just came with nothing. They came to take over and fight. So one of the things that they did, John Pololo would do, if you were there out that night with your wife, your girlfriend, your whoever, your sugar butter honeycomb, whatever you call your lady, your honey, your sweetheart, your heart sweet, your boo, your love, whatever you call her, it doesn't matter. John Pololo will snatch her from you. And he took her, and him and his entire gang would rape her. And if you try to do something, you got beat up. Like, severely beat up. And guess what? Nobody called the cops. Nobody called the cops. Because if you call the cops, they didn't show up. You just had to tell them who it was that was in the neighborhood. Just drop the name and no one shows up. John Pololo. That's where I come from. This thing will happen 3-4 times in a month. Because on the 18th, every day is the weekend. The whole idea of a weekend only came to my mind, or at least started to make sense to me when I came to North America. And I moved to St. John's, Newfoundland with the family. But in where I'm coming from, every day, like I said, Monday is no different from Tuesday. Tuesday is no different from Wednesday. Wednesday is no different from any other day. And every month seems like the same month. It seems like one big long month. Nobody cares about month. Nothing like that. Everybody wants to party and have fun. So this will happen a bunch of time in a month. And no matter what happened on the 18th, the following day, a few days after, every night the 18th was still packed. Every night. That was like our Las Vegas Strip. And John Pololo would come again and terrorize the community. And all this, while all of this is going on, me and my friends were on the rooftop. We will watch everything from there. In fact, we were like, as soon as we saw the convoy, they were the only people that were pulled up in black SUVs. Right? Or black pickup trucks. No, they were SUVs. They were pulled up in black SUVs. And once we saw the black SUV, the word spread like wildfire. See, that's where I come from. And then, of course, if we went on the rooftop, like I said, our routine was pretty much the same thing day in, day out. Got in a lot of trouble, got beat up, got in a lot of fight. Now, the part that I get beat up is when I'm being disciplined at home. The fight part, oh, forget it. I mean, we're good. And then gambling, more gambling. Everything, just gamble, whatever. We gamble. When I was in Vegas recently, I didn't gamble. I don't even like gambling. But then it made sense because that's how you got extra money. Oh, and here's another crazy story. So, like the club, the name of the club right now is Linda Side. The club right now is Black Sugar. The first club that she owned was called Reflection. That was in Trashville. So now we're in Mercury, the 18th. This club is called Black Sugar, and and Black Sugar was late. So one of the reasons why me and my friends, like, we were just bad kids. So the reason why we stay up so late every night was because we knew that eventually all these people got drunk. But like, not the ballers and stuff. Like when the ballers, the shot callers and the hustlers and stuff. I'm talking guys who, like, it was crazy. Like when they would leave, before the night was over. They weren't like, shit face and falling all over the street when they got drunk. Nah, they were gone. They was gone doing some other baller stuff. But the people that came in those taxi, a lot of the time were too drunk to figure out if they needed to leave and go home or stay. They couldn't decide. So what we would do, me and my friends, we go down in the bar and we go and pick pockets. But a lot of the time, these guys didn't have any money on them. There was no money in it. Every now and again, we got lucky. We find a little something that we could split up or buy food the next day. But that's what we did. We just went down and sniffed around and picked the pockets and figured out, but didn't have money. That's how we knew, the people who normally show up at the party and got drunk first, Those are typically the broke people because they got drunk not on their own money because they couldn't afford it, but they got drunk on someone else's expense. Someone else had to pay for that drink. That's what I know about drunk people. 9 times out of 10, they're broke. The nicest dressed guy in the room is also broke, with the exception of few people. Very few. You put 10 guys in the room right now, 10 random people, the guy that's dressed the nicest is broke. That's why I don't dress nice anymore. I don't want to give people the impression I'm broke every day. Anyway, so we would do that. So back to John Pololo, man. I mean, this was just a nightmare. This thing was like real life D-boy every day, and they didn't take your chain, they didn't take jewelry and stuff like that. Like John Pololo and his goon, these guys were just bad to the bones. Like they beat up people, they raped women, they did all kinds of stuff to you, man, and nobody would do anything. Like the police of even the, I mentioned before that there would be politicians here on the street partying and stuff, but once Pololo came in, this is the thing though. See, back home, if you come from status, people know who you are. From your license plate, they know who is who. So nobody really, very rarely people mess with people that come from status. So a lot of these politicians, they just left. They were gone. And the Liberian community was left to be terrorized by John Pololo and his goons. So it got bad. It's gotten bad now. Like it was happening. We lived there for a few years. It was happening every oh man, it's happened all the time. The Liberian community came together. I think two brothers came from Ghana. And they were big guys too, a little muscular, a little, much like John Pololo physique and things like that. And so they form an alliance. They put together this group of people. I mean, I'm telling you this story, and it all seems like bullshit, right? Like it seems like it's fake. It's like, what are you talking about? How can one person have such a life experience before the age of 13? This is all happening before the age of 13 years old. All right there. All of this life experience, I'm telling you, all before the ages of 13 years old. And that's why I wanted to start this podcast up with that story. So these guys, this is sore shopping sore, right? Liberians are typically not like, crazy, especially when you're muscular. Africa as a whole, if you're muscular, you can practically get away with anything because nobody wants to test you or try you because they feel like if they were to try something, you beat them up. And they don't want to get beat up. So if you're muscular, that's the way to scare people. If you're muscular, you're bodybuilder, okay, cool. Nobody's messing with you. So, but these Liberian guys weren't having it. They said, forget that. So they form a group. And there's this one night when John Pololo and his goon came. Man, they tried to take some girls away. And these brothers happened to be at the bar that night, the club. They were at the restaurant first because that's how it goes. They go to the restaurant, they eat, go to the club, drink. And then when they're almost drunk, they come back again, they eat some more. It's crazy. So anyway, a fight start. So now you have a line that's entirely divided. You have the Liberian over here, you have the Ivorian over here across the street. And it's a stalemate. Do you play chess? I love chess, by the way. It's a complete stalemate at this point. Everybody who could throw chairs, anyone who can throw a bottle, anything goes at this point. No one cares at this point. The community is fed up. They're not taking it anymore. And it is a complete war. It is World War II. It is World War III. Liberians here, Ivorians here, and there's a whole lot of cheers throwing in the middle. And if you mess up, you lose your footing. You can't lose your balance. You cannot lose your footing. You got to keep your eye on the prize. If you mess up and you wind up in the middle, you are done. You'll get all the cheers. You'll get all the table. You'll probably get a baby or a full-grown woman thrown at you. It's a complete war. And this went on for several hours and several weeks and months. Because John Pololo never gave up. He always came back. And then it just got too much. My mother said, listen, we're going to pull out of here. But by now, my mother had applied for our immigrations papers. And so things looks like it was materializing, and we were on the brink of leaving the country by now anyway. And my mother wanted to make sure that all of her kids were safe. So she always had this intuitions of when to go into a situation and when to come out of it. And we came out of it the right time. And we moved to a different community, completely out of the city. It was so far. It took like 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah, it took that long to come back to the city. So we moved to Vridi. Yeah, we moved to Vridi with the traffic, of course, because, we moved to Vridi, and that's where we stayed until we came to Canada in February 26, or was it February 27, 1997. We've been here for a while. If I can tell anyone anything, is appreciate life. Appreciate what you have now. Appreciate it. It makes no sense going through this world with animosity and a heavy heart and hatred, no matter what your circumstances are. I know a lot of you be like, well, that's not my life. Well, y'all only saying that because you're forgetting to know that could happen to anybody. I mean, the story I told you is not unique. There's millions of people around the world that have similar stories that I have. Millions of people. So my story is not the least bit unique at all. I'm just telling you what it is. So when people ask me, where are you from? I often find it troubling to answer the question for a few reasons. Number one, I'm not sure what to tell you. And that's the honest truth. Now it doesn't affect me because I've lived here for a very long time. So I just tell you, okay, I'm from Newfoundland, or, it depends on the previous city that I live in or I'm coming from. But back in those days, asking me this question was not easy for me. And I didn't understand why you were asking me this question. It felt so evasive. Because again, no one really asks you where you're from, where I'm from. So you have it. This is the first podcast, the 18th Avenue podcast, right here with Rico Bottles. I'm your host. Till next week, stay tuned for another podcast. And I will give you another story, another time. But for now, we end things there. So let me know if I need to look into the camera more, or if I need to look to the side. Let me know what you think.